Hey everybody, really good to spend this time with you. And again, I brought you to one of my favorite places. And I brought you here because I love this time we get to spend together. This time preparing and tilling the soil and really doing some introspection work that will power the work that we do in this coming week. So I recognize that it would be easy to not play this video. It would be easy to not do this writing, but you're here and you're doing it. We're doing this together. So I'm really happy that you're here. Welcome. Also, amazing session last week, and I heard all the classes last week were absolutely incredible and off the chart. I'm noticing there's so much meaningful participation. There's so much sharing. There's so much wisdom. There's so much teaching happening in the Monday class. And one thing I also notice is that there is a group of wise teachers that are coming forward and sharing a lot. And I love that. And I also see a lot of other wise teachers that are ripe to speak. So I'm talking to you right now and I'm saying, if you haven't spoken, if you haven't been seen, this is your week. Please come forward, share your wisdom, share your essence, let us know how you're feeling. So last week we did a lot of work around priorities and values and alignment with values. And we were really honest, and Nyasha busted me around how I'm not always consistent with my value of self-care. I don't get enough sleep. And I think we all got to look at that. Like, what's the difference between what we say we want and what our values are and what our daily life actually looks like? So I'd like to start out today with a grounding practice that orients us, that reminds us, that tunes us into what our true values are, what our highest priorities are. And that could look like notice, choose, and act, where it just presences you to what do I want to change? What am I noticing? What actions do I need to take in the moment? It could be, where is the beauty? When we notice the beauty in all of life. It could be, what act of kindness could I do in this moment? It could be, listen and respond, reminding us to breathe and check inside. This mantra is yours alone, and its purpose is to bring you right back to your priorities, right back to your values. So I'm going to ask you to let go and to trust that if you turn off this video, that you're going to receive your mantra. And you're welcome to play with it a little bit on the paper. But the mantra could be anything from be present to I'm the one to pray. Or it could be just remember. It could be one word, could be 3 words, could be 5 words. But it's the mantra that brings you back to the essence of your values, the essence of your priorities. Spend some time writing that down now, play with it, and when you say it, it should bring you right here to what's most important to you. It should just bring you back. So play with it, and then test it out on your heart, on your mind, and then come back and press play again, and we'll keep going. Back. I did that exercise right along with you, and I got the mantra, what now? What now does for me, it allows me to be still, to have like a little moment of prayer, and to listen for what's the next right action. It's really simple, it's really oriented. It lets me let go of any upset or any agenda or any plan that I have, and simply look at what now. And maybe if I'm in the grocery store, what now as I look up and smile at the person who's ringing up my groceries. Or if I'm walking down the street, It's that I bend down and offer some contact to someone who's sleeping on the street. Maybe if I'm with my child, it means that I take a moment to really look in their eyes and to offer them some love. So find what your mantra is. Know that if it's not honed in and perfect, totally fine. This is a work in progress, and you can change it and modify it later today, this weekend, next week. It's for you, and it's to orient you to what's most important to you. It's just a bringing back tool. It's a tool to bring you right here to what's most important. So let's talk about when we're going to use this mantra the most, right? When we're in the flow and everything's great, hardly need the mantra. But when we are afraid, or when there's something that we want that we don't know how to get, or when we feel a lot of grief, or when there's feelings in our body that feel overwhelming, particularly around love and loss, then we really need this mantra. Then we really need to remember what's important. So I'm going to ask you to list now, what are the kinds of situations, and they might be just like the ones that I listed, that could come up to throw you off of what's most important, to throw you off of your values, to throw you off of your path. What are those things that might come up? Somebody pissing you off, somebody not seeing you, someone not treating you well, the loss of something you love. Take a minute now, turn off the video, and write down what might come up to throw you off of the path of your values and your priorities. Go ahead. Great work on noticing what's going to come up. Because if we anticipate that things are going to come up, we're going to be ready for them. So I invite you to play with the mantra, hone it, exercise it, see how it feels when you come back when you're stressed, when something comes up that's going to throw you off. And I also want to just remind all of us that failure is part of the human experience, right? So I'm going to ask you to write down now what you love about failing. Just go ahead and do it. Now I'm going to ask you what you can learn from failing. What can you learn from failing? What is great and rich and a learning opportunity in failing? Go ahead. now I'm gonna ask you one more question about failing, and maybe it feels like I'm being redundant, but I'm gonna say, what does it mean about your life when you're failing? And I'm gonna give you a hint. The right answer is, it means you're taking risks. It means you're out on the skinny branches. It means you're giving up looking good and you're engaging fully in life. I'd love you to write down for you in your own words, what does it mean when you're failing? Go ahead. It's a great job. So together we're forging a new relationship with failure. And everyone that I know that has achieved extraordinary success has had to develop a really positive, welcoming relationship with failure because it's part of taking risk. It's part of living life fully. So thanks for doing that with me. And I'd like to just acknowledge that Notice, Choose, and Act are going to be part of every week, and they are the through line of this course. And your notice muscles are getting really strong. You're noticing how you feel. You're noticing who you love. You're noticing what's important to you. You're noticing what your values are. You're noticing what you're drawn to. You're noticing your wisdom. You're noticing your impetus to speak. So we're going to keep strengthening those noticing muscles with a new question. And that new question is, what's your biggest challenge? And I'm not going to give you a lot of direction around that. I'm just going to ask you to write down now, what's your biggest challenge? Notice and write. So whatever you wrote down as your big challenge, I'd like to give you just a little more time to flush that out, to write some elements about that challenge. What's challenging about it? What have you tried? What's painful about it? What works about having it as a challenge? Anything that you want to write to describe this challenge, to get really nestled in and comfortable and familiar with this particular challenge. And you might, as you write, decide, oh, this isn't my biggest challenge, it's another one. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Go ahead. So as I said, this is not serious work. We're practicing and strengthening the noticing muscle. And what I noticed as my big challenge is self-care. And so as I thought about that and felt around it, I thought, okay, really what would help me with self-care, instead of just acknowledging that it's a challenge all the time and noticing that I'm not doing it, is having a practice, having a structured practice to address that challenge. So I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna do it at the same time, to come up with a practice. Maybe it's a 3-pronged practice, 3 things that you're gonna do to address this challenge. And when we're doing this work, we're trusting that we have the wisdom, we have the answers, just like you do with every topic we have in class. So I'm asking you to come up with 3 practices to address this biggest challenge that you've just defined. Let's see what we come up with together. So I came up with some practices. Exercise every day, take an hour for myself, and have 2 dates a week with people that are really nurturing for me. So take a look down at what you wrote and see if you feel satisfied with the 3 practices that you've written down. Do you understand them? Are they clear? Will you know when you've done them? And if the answer is yes, let's go with those. If they need some work, give them some work. Could be now, could be later. And I'm also gonna ask you to really put these practices in time. When are you gonna do them? For me, I'm gonna do them for the next 7 days, from the time we're talking right now, for the next 7 days. And I'm gonna report back to you, I promise. So I want you to also report back. So I'd like you to find an accountability buddy. Think of someone now, write their name down on your paper, and if you're willing, reach out to that person and say, here's my challenge, here's what I'm up to, can I report back to you and tell you that I'm actually doing the practices to address this challenge? If you're willing to do that, go ahead and write that name down now. Great work on the mantra, great work on finding these practices, on noticing what your biggest challenge is. And as we always do, we're gonna go deeper. And we're gonna go deeper while we're strengthening the notice muscle. Your notice muscles are getting really strong. And so what I'd like to ask you to do now, and I'm gonna do it along with you, is to write down on your paper, I'm not okay with. And then under that statement, I'd like you to list all the things you're not okay with. Could be war, could be cruelty, it could be people hurting each other, it could be my mother dying, it could be my brother having cancer, It could be feeling alone. It could be feeling hungry. Anything that you're not okay with, whether it's very personal, it's in your community, or it's global. And this is an emptying of what's inside, and it's a noticing, it's a bringing awareness to our inner and outer world of what's not okay with us. I'm going to give you some time to do this because I know for me and I know for you, there's a lot we're not okay with. Okay, everybody, how did that go? To write down what you're not okay with. I did it for me, and I also thought about different points in my life and people I love, and I wrote down some other examples. I'm not okay with the way people stare at me on the street. I'm not okay with being hungry when I go to sleep. I'm not okay worrying about who in my community is going to get raped or murdered next. I'm not okay with not feeling seen or appreciated. I'm not okay with feeling unlovable. I'm not okay with feeling helpless and hopeless. I'm not okay with feeling like too much. I'm not okay with the way that I treat people sometimes. I'm not okay with the way I treat myself sometimes. I'm not okay with the way that I don't acknowledge or have empathy for myself sometimes. So I'm going to give you another minute to go deeper with anything you're not okay with. I'm not okay with a man waking up and kissing his children goodbye and going to an airfield and getting in a plane and bombing families who have lived and grown in these apartments for years in Ukraine. I'm not okay with women and children starving in Somalia. I'm not okay with many of you living in fear every day. So let's really look and let's be honest and let's write down what I'm not okay with. I'm going to give you another minute. Go ahead. Right. That was brave, brave work for all of us. So thank you for doing that. And just take a minute to look at your list and let's take a collective exhale. Because there's a lot that all of us are not okay with. And we hold our breath and we just walk past it because it's really scary to feel all that we're not okay with. So I'm gonna pick one that's not the biggest one. It's not war, it's not cruelty, it's not starvation, but it's not the smallest one either. And I'd like you to do the same thing. So pick one of those things that you're not okay with, that you'd like to do just a little bit of work with, just a little bit of play with. So take a look now, both take a break and come back, and we'll each have one of these things that we're not okay with, not the most intense. Let's start slow, and then we'll work with it. See you in a second. So did you get one? Okay, I hope so. If you didn't get one, just pick any one, and let's do this together. So I picked not feeling seen or appreciated. I didn't get a lot of positive mirroring growing up. I didn't get a lot of people acknowledging me and seeing me. And so often, no matter how much I do, I have this feeling that I haven't done enough, that I need to do more. So in looking at that thing that I'm not okay with, this is a notice, right? All of the things on your list are notice. And now I'm gonna make a choice. My choice is I'm gonna address this not feeling seen, this not feeling recognized, and I'm gonna take an action. And that action is at the end of the day, each day, I'm going to acknowledge the things that I admired and loved and was moved by as I watched this man go through life. So I'm actually going to name the things that I admire. I'm going to give myself maybe what I didn't get as a child. So now I'm going to ask you to do the same. I'm going to ask you to develop a practice to take it. It's another form of practice. We did a practice earlier. This is a new practice. This is the action in notice, choose, and act. So what action are you going to take? Could be there's hungry people on your street, you're going to make them a meal. It could be you want to change the way that you talk to your mother or your children, and so you're going to give yourself a practice to do that. It could be you want to get enough sleep, and so you're going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. You're noticed in your list. You're choosing that thing that you're going to change. And now I want you to pick an action that you're going to take. We're getting grounded in notice, choose, and act. Great work. So you've got a mantra, you've got actions to take, and now I'd love to just spend these last moments acknowledging that just like we're all gonna fail, we all lie to ourselves. You know, that's something I think that we've acknowledged already in our 2 sessions together. There's a lot of lying that takes place internally. So we just want to get in the practice of going in the direction of uncovering those lies like they're treasure. So I'm going to give you a minute, and I know this sounds a little crazy, but I'm going to give you a minute just to write down what are some lies that I'm telling myself. It could be that I can't do it, that I'm not enough, that I'm committed to being on time, that it's not my fault, that I don't know, whatever it is. But I want you to take a minute and just take the invitation. What am I lying to myself about right now? Great, and this is a time when I wish I could take sharing, because I know there's a ton in me. I say that I want to get fit, but I don't work out. I know I've said a lot of times how much I want intimacy, but then when it shows up, I run from it. I know that I often say I want to get more rest. We've talked about that a lot, but I don't. And I know that I say I want to take more time with friends, but I don't call them. So this is just an element of starting to get very real with ourselves. It started with the priorities and the values and looking at the difference in our lives. And now it's just asking that simple question. It's like we're spinning around our lives and we're taking a look inside and we're just willing to see what we see. And the reason we're getting comfortable with failure and the reason we're getting comfortable with seeing that we lie to ourselves is you can't find truth without discovering what could be looked at as bad news. So we're reframing it as good news. So I'm going to ask you once more to go a little deeper. What else are you lying to yourself about? What else is something you tell yourself that you're committed to that you're not, or where you haven't shown up, or an area of integrity that you need to clean up? Where are you lying to yourself? Often I've told myself that relationships were okay when they weren't okay. I've told myself that situations were okay, the jobs were okay when they weren't. And so I'm going to ask you again, it's an invitation to stretch and go a little bit deeper. What are you not being fully honest with yourself about? Go ahead. Amazing work today. And again, the purpose of this work is not some kind of perfection, but it's getting comfortable with looking deeply at our lives, with getting honest with ourselves, with each other, with being intimate with ourselves, with being intimate and getting help from others. We're practicing, because practicing allows us to really be comfortable with the work and to deepen into the work. The last question I'm going to ask you is also an open question. And the question is, are there any conversations that you need to have with loved ones or strangers or past employers or anyone in your life this weekend or next week? It's an open question. Are there conversations that you need to have? Are there words that you need to speak? From I love you to I'm sorry to I see you to thank you. Are there words you need to speak? Are there conversations you need to have with people in your life? If there are, write them down we'll come back and then we'll say goodbye. Like everything we do, this is an invitation. You've got your list of conversations. You can have them, you can not have them, but sit with them and really feel into what's the right thing to do. You've done a lot of great writing. I want to invite you to go over what you've written, to add to it, to modify your mantra, to take your actions, to really look at what you're not okay with and feel into how you can be more honest about the effects in your life of what you're not okay with. And thank you for being with me here. It's so nice to just spend this time with you, and I can't wait to see you on Monday. I love you guys.